Hi, Passionators. One of these days, I'm going to do a Facebook Live that's going to be problem free. All my technology is going to work the way it's supposed to, and I'll be able to pull this off flawlessly. But today is not that day. But here I am anyway. So, shall we begin? Usually I try to do my videos in a way that are evergreen, meaning that they'll be relevant no matter what's going on in society, right? And I think I can still do that today, even though the subject that gave me the idea was a story in the news currently about Jay-Z and Beyonce. Thanks for coming in. I'm so glad to see everybody on this holiday weekend. OMG. Yes, it is. For many of us, it is an extended weekend. So I hope you're finding ways to enjoy it, to spread some love, and to have some fun. Because if it's not fun, what's the point, right? So, back to the subject at hand. The never-ending subject, the gift that keeps on giving. Cheating, of course, is in the news once again. And lately, among celebrities, it has been making the news quite a bit frequently. For those that might be watching this much later, the current time is the end of June in 2017. So the headlines now are full of pretty much Jay-Z just dropped a new album where he talks, where a lot of the songs are about his infidelity. Previously, his wife, Beyonce, released Lemonade, which was a record-making, history rewriting visual album that also focused heavily on his infidelity. Mary J. Blige and her divorce are in the news because also of infidelity. When infidelity is going on with celebrities, particularly celebrities who are that famous, that being what I would refer to as A-list celebrities. Celebrities who virtually are known everywhere, even by people who aren't necessarily what you might call fans or followers. But their names are just so familiar that they become part of the lexicon. So people are at least peripherally familiar with whatever the blazing headline is about them. So right about now, well, sorry about all the background noise. It is the 4th of July. So I'm going to work around it. If it gets too distracting, just let me know in the comments. But I brought this up because in the lyrics of a lot of the songs on the album, Jay-Z talks about his infidelity. Rumors of their infidelity his infidelity have been circulating pretty much ever since they got married, or even before that. And I think there's so much I want to say about this. Okay, first of all, for an angle that I haven't really seen discussed too much, it is a stroke of marketing genius. Even though I'm not a real follower of either one of them, I am constantly amazed by how they rewrite the marketing game, particularly as it concerns their music and their brand and how they bring entertainment to the world. They have, not just them, but they have definitely raised the bar and rewritten tradition and how music is marketed and how it impacts us. Going a little further, people seem to be most widely accepting that the songs, the lyrics the subject matter that they deal with in these songs is somehow reflective of what's actually going on in their lives. I have no way of knowing whether it is or not. However, because people are taking it that way in such big numbers, it also reflects in how many people see their real relationships. For example, since Jay-Z is the one who is being highlighted as the betrayer, the cheater, and all that good stuff, he's being seen pretty much in two ways. By most women, they're using this as an opportunity to rip him a new one and to villainize him yet again for something else. It's really not that difficult to do. He's been really open for the most part about things he's done in his life that he would consider mistakes, missteps, bad choices that he's made, and the consequences of those. And so this actually made him pretty much the poster boy for all things cheating. And he's been getting dragged ever since. Twitter went crazy. And he was every bad thing that they thought he was, that's who he is. And the beehive is buzzing and all of that. And I mean, they burning him in effigy and all kinds of crazy stuff. Whereas on the flip side, Beyonce is now the poster child for all betrayed women. And now she's being, the focus on her, of course, is the polar opposite. Because it happened to her too. I'm not the only one. If it happens to her, what hope is there for any of us? Once a cheater, always a cheater. And the list goes on. All the way to, this is why men, I'm sorry, bringing it back in. It is big because we're seeing it everywhere. So we see it everywhere. It's really hard to avoid. And because of that, we deal with it in one way or another. So I posted it earlier and asked for people's thoughts about it. And they ran the gamut from I don't care all the way to I'm not surprised. Men are weak. This is why they shouldn't be in power anyway. This happens all the time. Nobody really believed he would ever be faithful. On and on and on and on. Right? Then there were those who were more thoughtful and who were more considerate of what it actually means more broadly. Some even, of course, being sympathetic toward Beyonce and how painful it is to be in her position. Here is what I know for sure. I do appreciate the fact that this has at least sparked the conversation. A much needed conversation, clearly with many people in their relationships. Because whether you make Jay-Z the villain or not, whether he becomes your hero or he is a villain or a bad representation or a good one, he is the flavor of the month, the poster child right now for all things why men cheat, even if they have the quintessential woman by their side. They still find a way, find a reason, find an opportunity to be unfaithful. And if that is the case, is anybody faithful? Once a cheater, always a cheater. All that good stuff comes back up again. The truth is, most of the people, I would venture to guess, I have no way of proving this, but this is what I think. I think a lot of the people who are taking all this time, making all this effort to rip Jay-Z a new one, have been doing a lot of the same things he's doing and justifying it in some way or another. As for people who have made him their new hero and thought he was big pimping and he was the man because he could actually cheat on somebody that they hold in such high esteem as his wife and she would still stay, they think he's some kind of hero. Personally, I don't think they're either. I just don't. People are using this as an opportunity to villainize him and to deify her, and neither is accurate. What's actually happening is they are living out the same story that a lot of the people who are watching them are living out in much worse, much more extreme and toxic ways. They're just not doing it in front of cameras. They're not doing it on Twitter. They're not doing it with paparazzi and CNN coverage. But how many couples are dealing with infidelity, with repeated infidelity, with the humiliation, with the pain, with the destruction, with all of that? How many? They are not unusual if it is true. Personally, I think it's just marketing genius. I don't believe any of it, but that's just my personal opinion. But it's a great story, and great stories sell. They sell very well. Back to the story, because it does bring up this hot button subject that a lot of people are living with, that people who don't have marketing issues and goals in their lives to deal with, that they are living with this. They are living with real infidelity. And because the two of them have dramatized it at such a high level, it is now back in regular conversations at water coolers all over the place, right? So what would be helpful is if we started to have these conversations realistically, talk about it the way it actually happens to people who aren't celebrities, talk about how it shows up when we've grown up watching it, and how it manifests itself once we are in our own relationships, to talk about it rationally instead of emotionally, as difficult as that is. Because ultimately, in these situations where infidelity is something that you are dealing with, living with, trying to live with, you aren't living with the emotion, you're living with what actually happened. How you process it is another story entirely. You may not even process it the same way with the same person. Meaning, if there are multiple infidelities, you may find out about the infidelities at the same time, or you may find out about them as they happen, or even worse, you may never find out. Doesn't mean they didn't happen, and it doesn't mean that they're not still impacting your relationship. So until we get honest about what's actually happening, until we get real about how we cope with what we're feeling, the way we process our pain is very often toxic to our relationships, because we see that as an opportunity to get back whatever it is we think we lost when we were violated, however we were violated. We're not consciously doing this many times. We're subconsciously doing it. We're looking for ways to reclaim whatever it was that we believe we were deprived of. And we're using this way to do it. And it's wrecking us. It's ruining us wholesale. And we have the dismal relationship statistics to prove it. And by the way, once a cheater, always a cheater isn't true. It's never been true. Cheaters change all the time. Cheaters stop cheating all the time. It is simply a matter of the choices they make. Somebody who chooses to do it will find a way to do it. They will make it happen. Conversely, those who don't want to do it will make sure it never happens. That is a choice. And just because somebody has a history of making one kind of choice doesn't mean that they'll always make that choice. Does it make it more likely? It absolutely makes it more likely. And if you don't see a change in behavior that indicates they're actually making new choices, I would believe their behavior instead of believing what they say. Because people who have something that they want, if they want it bad enough, they'll say anything to get it. I was having a conversation the other night after I did a radio show recently. Shout out to Rebirth Radio. They, we talked about this issue of cheating, of course. And that whole idea of once a cheater, always a cheater. The fact is, cheaters aren't born, they're made. They're self-made. There are people who are in relationships that they have been faithful in for over 20 years, who are suddenly presented with an opportunity to take advantage enough to experience somebody else sexually outside of their relationship. And they take it. Never thought they would. If you had asked them 2 days earlier if they would ever do something like that, it wasn't even on their minds. It wasn't even on their minds. But then one day the wind changed directions and somebody came by and the opportunity presented itself and they thought, you know what? Bada boom, bada bing. There it was. That's how it happens a lot of the time. I'm not talking about people who have a long history. That's another conversation. Because there are people who are getting into relationships with people who do have a long history anyway. They're demonstrating to you when you're still dating that they have multiple sexual outlets. Let's put it that way. I'm trying to keep this clean since this is Facebook. But they have multiple sexual outlets. And you are just one of them. They show you that. They show you that. They don't tell you that. They show you that. And that's where you get that knot in your stomach when you see certain things or when you don't. Or when you hear certain things or when you don't. And then I get an email that says, what does it mean when they... How do I know if they... Is it wrong if I... All that stuff, those are your indicators. Those are your red flags flying, wrapping around your head. Those are the red flags you're ignoring. If you believe it, it really doesn't matter whether it's happening or not. Because if you believe it, it's happening for you. So if it's happening for you, it's going to be happening for them. Are you being unreasonable? Maybe. But most of the time, you know when you're being unreasonable. because you have a history of being unreasonable. Just like they have a history of not being faithful. You see the signs and you rewrite them to mean something that they don't. You try to give them a new meaning that you can tolerate, that you can comfort yourself about accommodating, when that's not necessary. Not only is it not necessary, it's not healthy. And it's not helpful. It isn't going to get you any closer to the faithfulness that you say you want. But you're getting a payoff from staying involved. You're getting a payoff from staying connected. You're getting a payoff from being the betrayed one. You're getting a payoff from that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there. There's something about being in that situation that validates you, that strokes your ego in just the right way, that makes you feel like the hero or the heroine that you see yourself as, that confirms for you the belief that you have about yourself and about what love looks like. If you believe that love looks like infidelity, if that's what you believe, it may not even be what you think, but it is what you believe, because it's what you've been conditioned to accept as this is what love looks like. Then you'll go out of your way to accommodate it, and you may not even consciously understand why. You can't consciously make sense of it, but you will continue the behavior that supports what you believe. That is human nature. We create the circumstances that we believe are true. We assign the meaning to the circumstances that we believe are true. Whether or not they're actually true is another conversation. A conversation that many of us are unwilling to have. But the fact is, we believe, so that's our reality. We are shaping our own reality. Nobody else can do that for us, no matter how badly we want them to. Nobody else can do that for us. We do that. So if that's what you're generating, that's what you're going to continue to create for yourself. What we focus on expands. What we believe is what we attract to ourselves. We don't attract what we are, we attract what we believe. We attract what we're compatible to. We attract what's attracted to us. We don't attract what we want. We don't attract what we desire. And we certainly don't attract what we deserve. We attract whatever is attracted to us. And out of all of that noise that's drawn to us for whatever reason, we pick out what makes sense to us. That's what we pick. That's what we get into relationships with. That's what we make these connections to. That's how we live our lives. We live our lives in a way that is congruent with what we believe. So if we believe that all men are fill in the blank. Right now, Jay-Z is the poster child for all men are cheaters. All men cheat. All men are dogs. Oh, he can have somebody like her and still cheat. I told you. See? They all cheat. He's a poster child for that now. And yet another reason for the culture at large to start propagating that belief again, to start promoting it again as if it's actually the truth, and it isn't. Conversely, it also highlights this idea that women are faithful, because we're not talking about the celebrity women who cheated on their husband. They're not in the news. They didn't drop an album. They aren't telling this story. This isn't their narrative. Not because they're not living it, but just because it's not in the media. So the focus is different. Focus is always different. Even when we do talk about women cheating, we talk about it in a different way. We try to make it as if women cheat for different reasons than men do. That's not true either. Everybody cheats for all of the same reasons. At the end of the day, they're trying to meet a legitimate need in an illegitimate way. That's all. There is some form of ego gratification that they find in this other relationship that they don't have in their primary relationship. It's that simple. It is not complicated. People keep trying to complicate it because for some reason it makes them feel smarter or it makes them feel better or it justifies for them why they behaved in a way that was so out of character for themselves. Whatever. The bottom line is, it's all about your ego. When you get into a relationship to satisfy your ego needs, you are always going to be disappointed. Always. Why? Because your ego is relentless. It is bottomless. It always wants more. That's why you can see people in a relationship where it seems like they have everything together. But when you talk to the people who are actually in the relationship, they will spend the majority of their time talking to you, well, talking to me anyway, about what they don't have. Because the ego is relentless. It is bottomless. And if you continue to allow it to make your decisions for you, you are going to continue to be in relationships that are toxic to you. I'll let that one marinate for a little while. But as long as people are getting into relationships to get what they want from them, they will always be in toxic relationships. It's not what relationships are for. Relationships are an opportunity for growth, for learning about yourself through the eyes of another person. It's an opportunity for you to become the best version of who you are when you're in love with someone. That's what relationships are for, among other things. But that's the primary reason why they come to us, to teach us who we are. That's why intimate relationships come to us anyway. But all the other relationships that we have teach us from their lenses. They teach us what we are as daughters. They teach us what we are as sons. They teach us what we are as family members. They teach us what we are as friends, as co-workers, whatever. Whatever our connections are, they come to teach us who we are through that lens. A lens that we would be blind to without that person, without that situation, without that organization. Cheating isn't inevitable. It is a choice. It doesn't come with testosterone. And it's not living inside of estrogen. It isn't genetic. And it isn't because of anything outside of the cheater. It isn't because of the cheater's partner. It isn't because of the cheater's relationship. It isn't because of the weather. It isn't because of the situation, it's because they made a choice. And there is nothing that can be done to prevent them from making that choice, except them. The only thing that can stop anybody from being unfaithful is that that person, given the opportunity to be so, refuses the opportunity. There's never going to be a situation where there is no temptation. Never. Ever. Unless you end up on a deserted island, then you might have some hope. But as long as we are sharing this big blue marble together, there's no way to avoid temptation. There's no way to avoid attraction to other people outside of your mate. That isn't the problem. That's just natural. All the same stuff that made your mate attractive to you is still going to be attractive to you after you have a mate. So if you think all that magically turns off just because somebody fell in love with you, you want too much. You expect too much. That's unreasonable. And if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a strategy, if you haven't figured out what you're going to do to deal with your inevitable, yes, I said inevitable, your inevitable attractions to other people, you have set your whole relationship up for failure. It's just a matter of time. Because attraction isn't necessarily going to lead to infidelity. Attraction is what it is. It happens all the time. It's what people choose to do about it that makes it a problem. It's when they choose to hide it, and when they choose to lie about it, and when they choose to try to turn it into something that it isn't, when they try to deny it, when they try to ignore it, when they try to overlook it, when they try to stuff it down someplace where they don't have to deal with it, where they pick a fight with you so that they have something else to focus on. But that's another video. And I can't keep you here all night as much as I might like to. I hope there was something useful you got from this. If so, please feel free to share it. And if there's something else you want me to talk about, let me know that too. I appreciate you showing up in my inbox. All of you have, and I do have the next couple of videos pretty much figured out. But feel free, keep it coming, because I want to be here to give you what it is you need to hear, whatever it is that you want to talk about. I want to talk about what matters to you. That's why I'm here. I could very easily not be, as could you. So if you show up, I want to make it worth your while. So let me know what it is that interests you. A private message works. I read them all myself, although I do have help sorting things out, but I do read them all myself. Thank you for coming. I hope you have a great holiday weekend, however you're spending it. Make sure you put love on the menu. Nothing tastes better. But for now, rest well, passionators. For tomorrow, we rise to love. One more time. I love you totally. Bye-bye.